Welcome to our course, Green Economy from China's Stories. I am your lecturer in this chapter. This chapter is Circular Economy. It will be divided into 4 parts. Part 1, International Background. Part 2, 3R Principles. Part 3, 3 Levels. Part 4, Practices in China. First, let's talk about the development background over the world. Let's watch a video about circular economy.
格林美快速发展的这几年，正是中国绿色发展理念深入人心，从顶层设计到底层实践全面铺开的几年。一些地方通过发展循环经济，探索出了有生命力的绿色转型之路。而在国家层面上，发展循环经济的战略地位也在进一步提升。
在湖北荆门高新区，伴随格林美2003年在此落户，荆门的循环产业从无到有。目前已经有30多家从事循环经济的企业来到这里。就在去年，湖北荆门正式获批国家循环经济示范市。
2016年，我们全区的循环经济的产值达到了400个亿，其中格林美在整个全区的循环经济产值里面占1/4，真正起到了一个龙头和引领的作用。
荆门循环产业的发展只是一个缩影。目前全国已经建立了101个国家循环经济示范市，49个城市矿山示范基地。书里可以发现，18大以来，绿色发展被提到前所未有的高度，而发展循环经济正是推进生态文明的战略部署的重大举措。2012年，党的18大把初步建立资源循环利用体系作为2020年全面建成小康社会目标之一。2015年5月，中共中央国务院关于加快推进生态文明建设的意见，把发展循环经济作为生态文明建设的基本途径和重要任务之一，提出要在生产、流通、消费各环节大力发展循环经济。今年5月，在中共中央政治局第41次集体学习时，习近平总书记强调，推动形成绿色发展方式和生活方式是发展观的一场深刻革命。数据显示，2016年我国资源产出率比2010年提高了 23.2%， 全国万元 GDP 能耗下降 22.4%。通过发展循环经济，经济发展的资源环境绩效明显改善。据了解，目前循环经济的产值已经达到 1.5 万亿元。具体到再生资源回收这个行业来说，有1500万人在从事这个行业。下一步，国家将继续推进绿色低碳循环发展。
国家呢设立了循环发展的专项资金，累计呢已经支出了160亿元。那么循环经济发展的这个一些关键技术呢，已经列入了我们国家“1035”的科技支撑计划。
Before we start, let's take a look at this question. This is a figure of world lead production from 1995 to 2008. There are 2 curves in it. One represents the amount of refined lead produced, the other the yield of lead mined. Here, the amount of refined lead produced is represented by square, and the amount of lead mined is represented by diamond. There is something interesting about this figure. Each year, the production of refined lead far exceeded the yield of lead mined. Why? We know that in order to produce lead, we need to extract it from lead ore. Where did all these extra lead come from? Is there a mistake in the statistics? Let's begin our lesson on circular economy with this question in mind. First, let's talk about the background of circular economy. Here, we can see that since the Industrial Revolution in the 1760s, human beings have exploited a great quantity of resources from nature. Environmental problems have become increasingly prominent. Let us think about the 2 figures in the middle. This is Earth at the end of the 18th century. The orange part refers to the economic system. The outer blue circle refers to the ecosystem. At the end of the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution began in Europe. One by one, chimneys raised above the ground. everyone was content, as this was considered a sign of economic development. At that time, the other parts of the world are still agricultural, especially in China. Overall, people can do little to the environment. Back then, the scale of the economy is rather small. People worked extra hard to produce, unaware of the impact of their production to the environment. But as technology advances faster and faster, our productive capacity increased. Take a look at Earth at the end of the 20th century. What have it become? Our economic system had multiplied many times since the 1760s. Our chimneys are everywhere, and we need more natural resources than ever. This is when our economic system began to greatly affect the overall ecosystem. Now, let's take a look at the three figures on the right. They are about land and soil. When we extract mines, we do so by open pit mining, and we leave it be when we finished without restoring the land. We can never utilize the land again, and when it rains, soil erosion will occur. Let's take a look at the middle right figure. 10 or 20 years ago, urban rivers in China are polluted to the extent that fishes can no longer survive in them. The large amount of domestic wastewater and industrial wastewater discharge into the river had caused pollution and killed all the fishes. Now, let's take a look at the bottom right figure. We can see there are indications of air pollution and large amount of chimneys. Let's take the mini steel factories in Hubei as an example. We know that steel factories can have a serious impact on air. Hubei is located in North China Plain, where wind is relatively calm. During the winter, thus fog frequently formed. These fogs combined with air pollution will create smog. That's why a few years ago, Beijing, from frequent high PM 2.5 readings. This made us think, if we were to follow the traditional industrial development model, Earth's resources will deplete. Our ecosystem will be overwhelmed. Our economy and society will not be able to sustain. People were aware of this a long time ago. Around 1962, an American marine biologist wrote a book called Silent Spring. What is the possible future world for mankind? The world is a world without birds, bees, and butterflies. It is a very silent world. Why? It writes about the impact of mankind's production to the ecosystem. Why would there be a silent spring? Isn't spring supposed to be filled with flowers and the chirping of birds? Why are they gone? Because with the expansion of agriculture, pesticides were used in large quantity to eradicate pests. The poison pests were then consequently killed them all. That's why there is no more chirping of birds. This issue drew people's attention to environmental issues, which were then brought to the face of governments around the world. This marked the beginning of environmental protection. Circular economy was emerged under such context. Another background for the emerge of circular economy, the spaceship economy theory, brought forward by American scholar Boulding in 1965. We can see a spaceship and Earth in the figure on the right. We can take Earth for a giant spaceship, drifting in the vast expanse of the universe. For people to survive on a planet, their economic system will consume a large amount of resources, which ultimately come from our immense spaceship. We also discharge pollutants inside the spaceship, and there is no way out. If mankind multiplies unchecked in this limited confined space, the resources in the spaceship will deplete, and a large of toxic materials will be discharged within the ship, causing the downfall of our society. Therefore, we must consider mankind and natural environment as an integrated system. We are all on the same ship. Therefore, we must take this seriously. This is a question we all cared and faced. How can we use resources in an orderly manner and reduce environmental hazard emissions? Now, let's take a look at another classic. This is a report issued by the Club of Rome in 1972, called The Limits to Growth. This report was translated into many languages and printed in many editions by governments around the world. The limit of growth introduced 5 factors affecting the growth of economy: population growth, food supply, resource investment, environmental pollution, energy consumption. It was in this report that people first proposed that there is a limit for the development of Earth and mankind. They were thinking about this at the perspective of 1972. If we develop like what we used to, how many iron ore will we consume each year? How much food do we consume each year? If we keep developing like this, our economy will be on a decline when our population and economy reached certain threshold. Without enough food and iron ore, we will decline. It is then that people began to question and warn about the growth-pursuing development method. In this figure, we can see many curves. This is a time trend chart on per capita sources, per capita grain output, per capita industrial product output, and environmental pollution. After our reached certain limit, there will not be sufficient resources on Earth to support us. We will be on the decline. This is a clash between human growth and natural environment. But now we see that we haven't reached any limit. We are still developing without decline. Why? The answer is circular economy. We are learning now. Later in this course, we will talk about how to break through the limit of growth through circular economy. There is also another book on this issue, Only One Earth, written by a British economist in 1972. At that time, a series of similar books were published, describing the impact of economic development and environmental pollution on different countries. It appealed to the people of all countries to pay attention to maintaining the Earth on which mankind lives. We only have one Earth. Here we can see some statistics. This is the growth of population from AD 1 to 2000. Our population boomed in the last century, accompanied by rapid growth of world energy consumption. Changes must be made to our old linear economic development method. Now, let's review the background of circular economy. The world is increasingly focused on circular economy. From 1965, where it all begins, we had the spaceship economy theory. In 1972, the Club of Rome issued a report on the limits to growth. Then we had many historical international conferences, including Human Environmental Conference in 2002 and 2012. For every 10 years, we would hold an international conference to advocate people to develop a mutual relationship between human development and consider sustainable development. This is the background for the development of circular economy. As major politicians in various countries called for the sustainable development, we came to realize that our old way of linear economy might not take us any further. We should begin to consider circular economy. To conclude, let's compare the differences between the two development models. First, let's take a look at the chart. The left column is about linear economy. The right column is about circular economy. Linear economy is also known as open economy, in which we took resources from the outside world Then we discharge the resources through production, along with pollution. But from a circular economic as a whole, must consider our economy in an enclosed space. All our resources are taken from this limited space, and all our pollutants are discharged into the same limited space. We always use different metaphors for them. We dubbed linear economy as shepherd boy economy or cowboy economy. As linear economy is like pasturing sheep herds on a grassland. First you drove your herd to where the grass grow. After the herd grazed all the grass, you drove the herd to another grassland. Rinse and repeat. This is what we called a shepherd boy economy or cowboy economy. It is a one-way ticket from cradle to grave. When a place has depleted all of its resources and is no longer able to support us, we must move on to another place. But circular economy is space economy, aka spacecraft economy, is from cradle to cradle. That is, through certain means, we can restore the place that we depend on, so we can continue to depend on it. For example, let's consider the wastes we produced during the usage as cradles when they were made. After they were discarded, they became graves. When we recycle them, they will be cradles again. Now, let's take a look at their basic characteristics. The basic characteristics of linear economy are high investment, high consumption, high emission, high output, while those of circular economy are low investment, low emission, and high efficiency. Their directive ideologies were inherently different. Linear economy refers to the mechanic development view, because at the industrial stage, our world is functioning through machines. But when we adopt circular economy, our guiding ideology is changed. Now we called it sustainable development. Back then, in China, we called it scientific outlook on development. We are constantly enriching our guiding ideology. These two models have different premise assumptions. In linear economy, the supply of resources, the self-purification capability of environment are all assumed to be unlimited, and the environment is considered to be rich, free goods. But the base of these assumptions is on the small economy we had at the end of the 18th century. We do have unlimited natural resources if we are opening a small factory. But this is not true for today's economy. Our factories are growing in scale and quantity. Now, the supply of resources and self-purification capability of environments are limited, and natural resources have become scarce economic goods. What is the relationship between economy and ecosystem now? The contradictions and conflicts under the linear economy are that we develop our economy at the expense of ecological damages. But with circular economy, economic development and ecological protection are in harmony, and they have benign interaction. Lastly, the relationship between mankind and nature. In linear economic model, mankind is the master, high above nature. But in the circular economy model, mankind and nature are in harmony, and mankind is a part of the nature. This concludes our comparison on circular economy and linear economy. We now understand the background when we encounter problems in linear economic development model. Thank you for watching.